I will serve as your host at the beginning of the meeting. We have a quick introduction planned, and then I will hand over the mic to Dr. Jan Spies, who is our Chief Production Officer, and he will take you through the factory. So just to provide the context for the agenda, I will provide some company background, some history of Scout Motors. Many people know about Scout Motors, but not everybody, so I'll provide that look at our past and also a look into the brand that we're setting up for the future. Then Dr. Spies will take us through a quick presentation on manufacturing. He will then bring everybody around the table. We'll do a walkthrough of the manufacturing site, and then hopefully we leave about the last 30 minutes for Q&A. So first thing, what have we been doing here for the last 2 days? Fortunately, we've been able to hold what will be 12 sessions, 6 sessions yesterday, 6 sessions tomorrow with the community. We've had about 35 people per session come to engage and exchange, to ask questions, to really probe Scout Motors on what we're doing here and what we intend to accomplish. Really constructive, very productive. We've had some, I think, helpful questions that we either answer on site or that we can come back to over time and prioritize. So without further ado, let me just give you a quick sense of who is here from Scout Motors. Poonam Patel is our South Carolina liaison. Poonam is a South Carolina native, was born in Camden, lives in Columbia now, and is our eyes and ears on the ground in South Carolina. Corey Epps is our HR director. I don't see, oh, there's Corey right here. He's also a South Carolina native and will be heading up HR operations here. Dr. Jan Spies, I mentioned. Neil Citron, General Counsel for Scout Motors. Thilo Brockhaus, Director of Plant Construction, not with us today, but also will be on site here in Blythewood as a part of his role. Helga Holmes, the glue that holds us together, Executive Assistant at the plant site. Jörn Petri, our Vice President of Factory Launch. And lastly, as I mentioned, my name is Cody Thacker. I'm Vice President of Growth at Scout Motors. So a quick historical retrospective on Scout. So the story of Scout really begins in the 1830s with Cyrus McCormick. His product was an agricultural one. It was geared towards farmers. It was a horse-drawn reaper. Had decades of success, did quite well at the McCormick Company. In 1902, McCormick merged with several other companies, financed by J.P. Morgan of all people, and that became International Harvester in 1902. Really broad portfolio of products from International Harvester, made vehicles for defense, made heavy trucks, made farm equipment, and also made a line of light vehicles, and that's where Scout came from. Scout was manufactured from 1960 until 1980. October of 1980 is when the last Scout rolled across the assembly line in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and then went dark after that. Another International Harvester company was called Navistar. That was a company for heavy trucks. Navistar in 2021 was acquired by Volkswagen Group. And then fast forward to September of 22, that's when Scout Motors, Inc. was formed. So Scout Motors, Inc. is a Delaware corporation. We're headquartered in Tysons, Virginia, and now very proudly will be manufacturing in the United States at this Blythewood site. So this is a look at what the Scout brand was like in the 1960s and 1970s. As they put it back then, Scout went first and went further. Scout really created and defined the modern SUV, whereas before the Willys Jeep was a pretty rudimentary farm implement. Scout kept all of the ruggedness, kept all of the capability, kept all of the off-road prowess, but did things like put a roof on the vehicle. They put a back seat in the vehicle. They put heating and air conditioning in the vehicle. So not only could you take it hunting and fishing and camping, not only could you take it to the job site or to the farm, but you could also put your family in the truck. You could use it as the family grocery getter. You could take the kids to school. You could go to soccer practice in it. As the ad executives in the 1960s called it, it was the 8-day-a-week truck. By that they meant it was really fit for any purpose. And this DNA This sort of orientation towards product is something that we very much will embed in Scout products in the future. You will see this DNA in the Scout products that we launch in 2027. So what does Scout look like in the future? Well, largely, I think it can be explained with these 4 things. 1, it's an authentic brand. What do I mean by that? Well, this vehicle will have serious horsepower, serious torque, real hauling and towing capability, incredible traction control, incredible ground clearance. This will be a fully capable electric vehicle. Next, Scout has no small goals here. There's no small objectives. We're not launching a niche product for a niche consumer. What we're doing is looking at medium and large-sized trucks and SUVs, which are the heart of American automotive. Those are the biggest profit pools, and that's exactly where Scout's product will fit into the market. Next, Volkswagen Group. Volkswagen Group operates over 100 factories across the globe. Volkswagen Group employs about 700,000 people. Arguably, Volkswagen Group is the most sophisticated engineering and production organization on the planet. And this Scout has a really unique advantage. We can lean on that. We can leverage Volkswagen Group for their engineering expertise and for their production prowess. And lastly, it's just changing consumer orientation. We're looking at what's important to consumers today. And you really saw this change over the course of COVID. People who lived in New York City, people who lived in Brooklyn were suddenly moving to the Adirondacks so that they could be close to the outdoors. People who lived in San Francisco were moving to Tahoe so that they had access to camping and hiking and mountain biking. Really, the new luxury, the new premium, is being able to access the outdoors. And we also know that people's attitudes towards sustainability are changing rapidly. Nielsen released a study a couple months ago saying that 78%, nearly 80% of consumers now emphasize sustainability in their lifestyle and buying decisions. Scout will very much have an answer for those consumers. So our purpose, Scout's purpose really can be summarized simply. It's that we bring people together. We bring families together. We bring friends together. We bring people together with the outdoors. We will manufacture the tool that allows for that. Or, to put it succinctly, Scout is about connecting us with our land and the people in it. And final slide before I hand over the mic. This is Scout's brand positioning. We're very lucky in that we have this heritage that you see on the left side of the chart. This heritage remains strong today. People are nostalgic about Scout. They remember Scout from their childhoods. We very much will use that as a springboard. But on the right side, you see the opportunity for ingenuity, for technical innovation, digital, software, electric powertrains, all the performance advantages that comes with. Imagine if you took a brand with the heritage of a Levi's, the heritage of a Carhartt, and smashed it together with an Apple. That's exactly the brand position that Scout will assume. Now, if done right, Scout has the opportunity to create the next American icon. Now, think of Volkswagen Bus, Volkswagen Beetle, the Porsche 911. These are products that have been in the market for decades, but still hold tremendous cachet, tremendous equity, are still highly desired by consumers. I think if Scout gets this just right, we'll be launching a product very similar to those that becomes iconic in the marketplace. Okay, and that is all for me. So let me hand it over to the star of the show to take you through a brief presentation on manufacturing. Dr. Jan Spies.
Thanks, Cody, and thank you very much for taking the time with us. And the star of the show is standing ahead of me. I'm just the voice of that model. And the question, why are you building a model of a factory that you have anyhow in 3D or available in drawings, is very simple to be answered. Number one, the guys working on this plan are people who are not living in Blythewood. They are planners that sit in offices. And for them to see what we are doing, to understand the neighborhood, to understand the implications, the slopes, the altitudes, this is why we build a model in first place. In second place, and I think that's even more important, we build it to make it visible to public what we are about to do with the piece of land that has been handed over to us. And as we saw over the last days, there's lots of questions and there's a big need for understanding what it is about to build an assembly plant. And please let me start with that and go through some of the key factors that are around this plant. And you could ask, why am I qualified to do that? I myself have been able to work with Volkswagen for over 20 years now. And most of the time, I've been able to do factory projects, such as this one, all over the world, one of them being the plant in Chattanooga that you might know. It's almost in the neighborhood. And I think it's a very good example of us approaching a neighborhood and being and becoming part of it. Now I will be moving here with my family and with my 2 kids, and I'm really looking forward to it, to maybe adapt as good as possible to this neighborhood in which we are building the plant that will employ over 4,000 employees. That's the commitment that we have been given, and that's the commitment that is not including any suppliers or any service companies. Of course, this is not the number that works there all day long. When we are in the 3-shift model, then of course the 4,000 employees are divided over the 24 hours the factory is running. Second, and this is a more difficult number, the number of over 200,000 cars a year that we intend to build is a number that is very difficult to imagine. Nobody has ever seen a parking lot with 200,000 cars on it. The number that is a little bit easier to envision is more than 40 cars an hour. That's 1 car every 1.5 minutes. That's a lot. Is that a record-breaking number? No, it's not. If we look into the industry, then we see other automotive plants normally are conditioned to build 60 cars per hour. Okay, these are a bit larger, so it's about the same size. There are other factories that build double of that. So to say, what we are building here is, when it comes to the size and the magnitude, a very normal automotive assembly plant. The difference maybe that you will be seeing on the detailed layout here is that we are building a plant that has a certain amount of flexibility. Since we have a huge amount of plants all around the world as the Volkswagen Group, and Volkswagen is investing in Scout here, we have the wish that this plant will be flexible to anything that might occur in the future, because we don't have a tradition in leaving factories. So this factory, and this is what I'm showing in the future here, is able to grow, is able to change and cope with it very well, which is not standard in the industry. Maybe a last thing that is very important to point out is the first renderings that had been published had big blocks of buildings, and these big blocks were huge. If you now look on the model, you will see less than 10% of the total area will be built in the phase 1 with buildings. And what you see as well is that the elevation of these buildings, even though this is a little bit higher here than realistic, is far lower than you will have seen in the first renderings. The feedback that we got over the last days was exactly that. It doesn't look as bad as maybe first renderings would have thought. Today's products, food, and many more things are of course subjects to the discussions how sustainable they are. Factories are not that much yet, but we believe this will come. And so therefore it's important to say here that this factory of course will be a state-of-the-art factory. And state-of-the-art factory of our years today say that in the future there should be the opportunity to become CO2 neutral. Even though this is a very rough term, that means today when we install and we buy equipment, that we try to reduce burning of gas, that we try to reduce those things that will not help in becoming CO2 neutral. So we have, for example, an electric heating in the paint shop. We will use heat pumps for generating the heat within the plant to be in future able to supply ourselves or get supplied green energy. A second thing is that over time, of course, drives and illumination and everything is getting better in the energy consumption. To minimize the energy consumption here, no matter if it's green energy or not, what we're using, to minimize the energy consumption is, of course, an aim that we're following on this factory as well. There are as well aspects that are maybe not on top of everybody's agenda today. Having built a factory In Mexico, long time ago, there an important question was always the water usage. That is not so high on the agenda here in the States yet. However, the standards that we are applying say that we want to minimize water usage. Another example is illumination. We don't want to illuminate the whole plant and have an illuminated logo on top of the roof. Because we all know today that birds crossing factories, that insects living here are not really keen on having all day, all night long high illumination rates. So minimizing the emission is not only about exhaust, it's not only about gas and stuff like that, it's as well about things like light. So we know that, and we try to optimize the factory to be as good as possible, a state-of-the-art factory. And maybe one last issue that is important to be pointed out to everybody who is not from the car industry. When you're building in a greenfield area, a new site, then we have here on top a new car that we're dealing with. We're having new equipment that is installed that has to learn to work with each other like an orchestra, and the musicians in there are our workers. Most of them hopefully will come from the region and will not be automators by heart. So learning how to make an auto will take some time. So therefore the ramp up of this factory will not be switching it on, going to 100%, but it will be a slow ramp up. For that purpose, we have an own launch manager here on site. It's Jörn Petri, whom you saw today already. It is a process that helps us, and this is important as well, to alter things that are necessary in the ramp-up process when it comes, for example, to traffic situation. So we are planning and executing as good as possible, but there is always the possibility to work against things if there would be some. And now please feel free to step here and to look at the model as we see it today. The model that we built here can be seen from two sides, and that's how I want to explain it. First, from the inside to the outside. That's basically the core process of building a car. I want to explain that a little bit to understand why the buildings are looking like they are and how they are located and why. A second view on it is the outside-in view, and that is as important because we're talking of a neighborhood dialogue here. And the outside-in view, I will explain afterwards, why did we put it like it is and not turn or flip it. Please let me start with the inside of the factory. Any car factory that we see will always have a body shop, a paint shop, and an assembly shop. So these three shops you find in every car factory. The body shop I start explaining with. The body shop is basically the shop in which bended sheet metal parts that are transported to the plant are welded together. Transported to the plant here means the arrival is from the north. As I haven't been saying so far, this is the planning status of today. There might be changes. This is a 95% truth what we see here. But the idea of having the trucks to the north is mainly because we say acoustically it's the best possibility for the surrounding. In the body shop today we have spot welding, we have laser welding. The times in which manually welds have been made, they are gone. This is a very automated shop in which some glue, but mostly welding will take place. It's the assembly process of the sheet metals. From there, with a conveyor, the car is transported into the paint shop. Maybe talking about the car is too early. It's an unpainted shell. The unpainted shell is going through the paint shop, and as paint shops are very similar along car factories all over the world, it's important to say that technological improvements have been the biggest in paint shops over the past years. They are getting safer, they're getting smaller, they're getting more energy efficient. This is the only place in the factory where we treat something called paint that is a chemical. We are not modifying it, we are attaching it to cars. So therefore, this is the shop that is made to the highest safety standards that you can buy today. It will be done by a well-known company, and it will be done to the standards that we are applying to all our paint shops globally. It's important to say that there's one difference, and that I said at the entrance. It will not burn gas to heat the ovens, it will burn electricity. There will be electrical oven which makes the whole shop even more safe. From that paint shop, through the conveyors, the body, now the painted body, goes into the assembly shop. And the assembly shop is a chain of lines in which 2/3 of the people that are working in Blythewood plant will be working. Because we are highly depending on manual work in assembling the car. I think the past and the future shows us that manual work is fantastic, is best in handling complexity, and is at the end of the day one of the most reliable ones that we can get. So therefore it will be a very manual assembly shop, and we think this is the right approach. The finished car is then exiting the line here to the west side. Now you could ask, why is it exiting to the west side when you have such a nice flow from south to north? We have the exit at the point where the path towards the outbound logistics, where the car is transported away, is the shortest possible. So therefore we don't want to have any car traffic more than necessary in the plant. As if you look at the logistics, the assembly trucks are coming from the north, the body shop trucks are here in the south. The employee parking lot is in the east. We have all logistical streams in the factory distinct from each other. So no intersections necessary, and the idea is that we have as little as necessary intersections, because they're always a cause for issues that we don't want to have in the plant. Now you could ask, why is the distance between the shops as big as it is? You could just pull it a little bit together. There we are at the point of flexibility. If tomorrow there would be another Scout, if tomorrow there would be more colors, if tomorrow there would be a different car from Scout that would look different, or there's a predecessor, then we are able to expand and to modify in the different directions without disturbing the structure of the factory. So everything we have to do inside the factory will be done inside the factory. If you look at any aerial view of a Chattanooga plant or so, then you will see how that looks after 10 years. So this plant will allow for more or less everything. There's one more shop we have to talk about, and it's this one. This shop is the battery assembly plant. And since batteries are something that we are not so used to having in the car industry, it's worth talking a little bit about. It's not a shop in which we process lithium or other chemicals. It's an assembly plant. That means we take cells. These are more like the battery inside this remote control, just a little bit larger. We get them delivered here. That's a finished product. And we put them into boxes, put them together, and that's the battery of the car. So what we do on this side will not be any chemical treatment. It will only be an assembly process. This leads to me saying the factory that you see here is please not be called a heavy industry site. Because what we're doing is assembly of cars, assembly of sheet metal, assembly of batteries, but what we're not doing is foundries or other heat treatment things or so. That's so much to the inside of the factory. If we're looking to the outside of the factory, this is one question that we have to ask early in the stage once we do a site selection. So when we were visiting first Blythewood site and second time Blythewood site, we always looked at the surrounding and we tried to understand on how to fit the factory in here. It was very clear from the beginning on that we will have to level the site so that it's table flat as a factory needs to be. From that perspective, it was very clear that this site, when it is leveled, will be looking similar to what you're seeing here and now. There's a big slope to the north, so everybody who looks from the north to the side looks down on the factory, which is normally a very good perspective because the elevation doesn't matter. The distance to the plant is very big. When we look to the south side, this is where we have then to build up the site to have basically a table. This table has the advantage that when it comes to noise, which will come from that train, that this noise goes over the houses in the south. We all know that building the site here has caused issues to the neighborhood. And everybody, including the team, really feels sorry about that. But we know if we're now not doing it properly, the site will not be a long-lasting site, but could wash away when there's rain or so. And this is what we don't want, so we do it properly now. And after the site work is done, we have buffers all around that are sufficient. Now the traffic situation. If you look at the model, there is no exit or entry road through the whole site from north to west to south. The only exits and entrance lines are on the east side, because this is where already today the highway is. And the highway today is the one where we connect. And the good thing here is that we have a new highway exit that is in the design process at the moment. And we are very thankful to those guys from South Carolina Department of Transport calculating and optimizing these rows and lines and exits at the moment to the very best. And what you see here on the model is not the final stage. We are still getting better here. Why? Because the truck traffic is a very constant flow. As you see, we have very much logistic space to store parts. That's something not everybody does, but we get a little bit more independent through that. We have a quite big site where there is the possibility for trucks to stage and arrive. So you need to wait in some roads around. And we have all the entry roads to the site so that they are easily connected to the highway. The more difficult part in every factory is, of course, the shift exchange traffic. This is when a big amount of cars in a short time wants to go or come to the site. And there, the biggest stream, we have to easiest go to the highway, and we think this is something that we can achieve here. Maybe a detail on the side, but a very important one. Here's a small building close to the employee parking lot that is not designed yet, so we just put a box there. But this building will be the employee training center. One of the big assets of South Carolina is to have the organization of Ready SC. They will help us to recruit and train the huge amount of people that we want to recruit for our plant. Together with them, we will be running a training center here that is well connected to anything that is available around. Let me summarize the overview of the whole plant, please, briefly. We have been showing that we try to come with a new product that enters into the electric vehicle market and really hits the spot of the market. I try to show that what we are erecting here will be a sustainable and good state-of-the-art factory that is assembling cars. And number three, I think what could be seen, we try to integrate it as good as possible into the neighborhood, being able to become a very good neighbor to all of the guys working here and working around and living around us in the future. I think that is now the time when questions to all of us in the team could raise, and we could try to answer them as good as possible as we can do today from today's status. Thank you very much. Please. The update on the wetland permit is that we know that we're entering a new spot in a state, in a city, in the country, that the regulations that we have to meet are the ones that we have to locally meet. And so therefore, we are, of course, aware of the fact that whatever has to be delivered here will be delivered, will be checked, and will come back to us. We're extremely happy that a huge amount of parties involved are really helping extremely well to put the whole thing forward, and we are working on it, and we are positively expecting the next results. Well, my goal is none. My goal is to really go to zero if possible. If we achieve that, I cannot tell you today. But we have two means on working on it. The main usage of gas in a plant like that is burning of gas in the paint shop for heating ovens. That's normal, that's standard. That is something that we switched to electrical ovens. This is a very big portion of it. Number two, even though we're in South Carolina, and I tell my wife, it's always summer here, come with me, we will have days when we want to heat the shops. And this would be number two, burning gas for producing hot water. This is where we are in very good contact with an extremely sophisticated company to have heat pumps to produce the heated water that we require. If we're able to do so, the remaining amount of gas that we might use is at a minimum, and this would be our goal.
Blythewood has an image of itself as more of a bedroom and an equestrian community. While 4,000 jobs are great, that would employ almost everyone in the town, including all of the children. Can you talk about the benefits both directly from Scout and as in the ancillary benefits of Scout coming to Blythewood that don't have to do with jobs at all?
I think, and I could pass on to Corey if you want, and you would like to come over to me. First of all, we are hoping that there's a lot of people we can recruit from the greater area. Not necessarily Blythewood as a city, but the greater area. And what experience shows is that, of course, there will be people moving here, and that there will be people switching jobs, and that there will be a good balance at the end of the day. But I agree, it will not be 4,000 people from Blythewood City working here. But the aim would be on the long term to be a community where the part is the factory. Number two, the question on what is still staying with employment. Is there a factor of hairdressers, shops, supermarkets, restaurants that are growing through an industrial site like that? It's very difficult to answer that. I've only seen one study so far, and that had been made in Chattanooga several years after the plant had been erected there. At that time, the result was a factor rather 1 to 8, 1 to 9, 1 to 10. You could sort of discuss a little bit the results, but a quite high factor of how much is the employment implications through one job that is inside the plant. So I think what one could expect is, yes, there will be economical growth coming with that. Of course, what you're asking is more than that. Like, how as a neighbor would we be, and what is maybe the benefit? I think this is what we are trying to set up at the moment. We have to go into the dialogue with you. We have to understand where is it that as a huge employer, as somebody in the neighborhood, we can help, we can support, and we are needed. There are places where maybe not. This is a process we are in. Corey is at the moment traveling around and discussing with the schools around, with the technical colleges. We're trying to engage with as many parties that we can get here in the area to see and understand. If you look lots of years down the road, and as you hear from my accent, I'm German, I've seen lots of German Volkswagen plants in Germany. There we are more years down. Then the factory normally is part of the public life. Yeah, you go in, you go out, you have your family days. If something is outside, the factory is supporting. If there are schools who want to see something, you go into the factory. This is something that has to grow and that can grow, but please allow us. You saw the team is still fitting on one slide. We have to work on that one, and we are extremely happy on what we saw over the last days, that people are willing to support us in that. And now, Corey, please.
So Dr. Corey Epps, I'm the HR director for Scout Motors. I'm local, I'm from South Carolina. I've worked in the upstate of South Carolina, I worked in Columbia, South Carolina, but everything Dr. Speed said hits it right on the mark. We're trying to now get to know the community we're around. Yes, I'm a native of South Carolina, but I don't know Blythewood. I want to know Blythewood. I want to know the people of Blythewood, what makes it tick, We're working with District 2. We're trying to work with Midlands Tech, all these different entities to make sure that we're making the right decisions. But it's a long-term decision. We're a small team right now. Dr. Speed said it very well. But as we build our team, as we build in the community, we want to make decisions that fit into the community. So that's one side from the Blythewood side. What you do see around a plant of this size and anything of this size, normally I'm from Whitmire, South Carolina, and in that we have Samsung in Newberry, and you see the growth that happens around Samsung. We saw the growth that happened around BMW. You'll see that same kind of growth in Blythewood. We won't be necessarily the controlling factor of that, but we'll be an integral part of how that works, bringing in the right people. But we're not just looking in Blythewood, and he said it well. We're looking at Fairfield County. We're looking in Kershaw County. We're looking at Lexington. So we're looking all over to make sure that we have the right mix, putting the right programs together, putting the right mix of people together so that we're all growing together. It's all about growth together.
Oh, no, you could please.
Can you show us on the display there how you're going to mitigate the noise for the Ashley Oaks people? Like where does the land rise, send the noise out of there?
Yes, of course, I do. I'm not sure whether you get that on camera. But as you see, with attaching that balcony to the model, you see that we are very aware of the situation, that we thought about it very thoroughly. And when you look at earlier drafts and designs made by Thomas & Hutton, local company knows what to do, we had in the beginning the plan to build a wall here, a retention wall that would have been pretty high. We all decided together that this will not be a good solution because seeing a wall from the backyard is not a very positive thing. That's why we pushed the rail as much as possible to the north. So as I said, there's one point that cannot be fixed or not be changed, but we pulled it as much possible to the north and make this slope here as flat as possible so that coming with trees will allow for the visibility of the forest again once the grading work is done. So therefore the buffer between the closest houses and the first train is here, something between 150 and 200 meters. It is much wider as it is at the moment during construction. That's point number one. Point number two is, of course, the question of noise that you're raising. The question of noise can, in this point, only be coming from the rail that is going along here. All the truck traffic is so far in the north, this is irrelevant. But the trains we have to look at. The train traffic, which will be a very minor one because mainly we're just talking about cars leaving the plant. The trains are going with a very wide radius. We try to make that radius as wide as possible to keep the noise of wheel against track as low as possible. Number two, we decrease the speed. We're going for approximately 10 miles per hour speed on that side. And speed of the trains that are running here. 10, yes. So, and then the last one is we cut off every intersection with roads that could have been on site so that no crossing of roads, which would mean that we have to honk horns, is necessary on the whole area here. So we try to keep it as low as possible, and as all simulations that are available to us at the moment show, we are noise-wise here on the right track. So this is basically what we have taken as measures to make this distance as good as possible. And now if we look at, if we look at the topography, the Ashley Oaks is a little bit like a wave here. So this is a very low part. The highest part is approximately here, and it's decreasing a little bit. The train is on a constant level, so therefore the lowest slope is here, the highest slope is there. And with the lowest slope, still the visibility will be such that the train through the trees will, according to how we understand it today, not be visible. And if there are, we talk to the guys that are living here. If there are, we would see it in 2 or 3 years. If there are issues we have to look at, together with these, we look at. You see, we can have Cody answer. I would have answered as an engineer, but Cody is even better.
Well, thank you for the question. I won't wade into any political debates, but let me just comment on general consumer attitude and our forecast of adoption. One, our belief is that the engineering behind electric vehicles can offer an objectively better car. The performance is there, especially in truck and SUV applications, because you have 100% torque from 0 RPM. You have huge hauling and towing capabilities. You can have grid level power from the vehicle. So laborers can run compressors, pneumatic tools, other tools from the vehicle, a fraction of the cost to own and operate. So an extremely attractive vehicle for consumers of all sorts, especially to the consumers we want to talk to, which are farmers, laborers, workers, families. What you see is the marketplace is now changing its orientation towards electric vehicles. In California, 33% market share for electric vehicle sales, 7% market share across the United States. Consumers are coming towards EVs in droves. What we say is driving is believing. Once you've driven an EV, it's about the only car you want to drive again. AAA had a study a couple years ago about purchase intent for EVs. Over 90% of EV owners intend to purchase another one, which speaks volumes. It says that the EV experience is a really good one. So I would say it's less about how is the political situation developing and where does political support come from, and it's more about, are these products an advantage in the marketplace, and what's the consumer sentiment towards them? And we think that's going in a really positive way, and we think we'll be introducing our electric vehicle into the market at just the right time. Yep.
Just one last point to add to that. On the political question, obviously, we don't want to wade into the politics of it all, but I have to say one thing is, we looked at over 70 sites around the United States, and we chose South Carolina for many reasons. One reason that was pretty high on the list was the support of the Governor McMaster, as well as the legislature, as well as the county and the town officials. Everyone that we've met from day one has been not only fantastic in working with us and encouraging us, but encouraging EVs generally. Governor McMaster had his EV summit last year. He had an electrification, a power summit earlier this year. There's truly a commitment here in the state towards ensuring sustainability and ensuring electric vehicles. And so, we're confident of the support of the government, both sides of the aisle. And as Cody said, that's the way consumer sentiment is going, and that's where we're going. And so Jan's going to go, went through, we intend to stay here for quite a long time. We're building for the future, and we have full faith that that's where we're going to go.
I think that's very easy to answer. Not. Very easy to answer. It's not important to the plant. The whole case that we're showing here is pictured in that model. So everything we are planning to do at the moment fits into that plant. 4,000 employees, 200,000 plus cars. If this is what we can deliver, then basically the story phase 1 is a good one. If there would be a phase 2, for us, it's a complete different story we can talk about, but it's not that we have to look into the future to manage today. And I think that's good news. Maybe I can hand over that question, especially when it's about
When it comes to
success.
dollars,
We
yeah.
just started.
Again, I mean, the $1.2 billion incentive package, the largest in South Carolina history, was no small part thanks to the governor and to the legislature. Again, both sides of the aisle. We fully intend for it to be a success. It includes not just helping us with the land itself, but with the building of the training site, as Jan pointed out, for incentives across the board. So these are incentives, of course, that we only get as we work with the government, the town, the county to be successful. And we intend to be a success, and we intend to keep our partnership going.
There you go.
You indicated earlier that this is 10% of the land built out on the current model. On the illustration up here on the board, is this a total build out? Should everything, all of the economic factors line up and everything goes perfect? And what is the timeline for that?
So without going into the detail of every box that you see there, this is a very old status on how it could be. This is not any intent that would cooperate with that. The core of it is the same, is correct, but this is basically one thing that has been moved to the current planning status. That's what I said. The first renderings that you saw had been quite huge and are not the ones that we're planning to build. So therefore, this is not a phase 1, a phase 2. This is an old planning status where we do have renderings. This is the 95% truth as we have it at the moment. Here there had been, for example, a press shop. We don't need that here. There's enough press shop capacity in the area. Just for one example, how we decide on doing things and not things.
So there's not a phase 2 build out already?
No, it's not. And it's on purpose not. I could explain you the 15 to 20 alternatives we would have in our books. But the question on what would you do in the next phase is, first of all, what is the product in which volume that you want to manufacture? And then always, since we have to look at money as well, the question is first, can't you do it somewhere in phase 1? Add a little bit, change a little bit, and then do it there. And this is why I said, look at the Chattanooga plant. I think this is a very good example after more than 12 years. We had one item on the right side we called phase 1. The initial idea was to mirror that to make a phase 2. We never did that so far, but we expanded here and there and in other spots and still doubled the volumes inside the existing facility. What will be the future here? We cannot tell you. It might be that we need more volume of the same car. It might be that we want to have different cars. This is then what plays the way of expanding it. And the good thing is we don't have to decide today.
Do you have the initial models that will come out of this facility already pre-planned? A truck, a SUV, or what?
We are having a very good detailation of the car as it is looking like, how it's coming out of the plant. It is not a sketch that you would like to see, because that's irrelevant for us at the moment once we design the plant. For us, it's more important, like what is the order, how we put together things, what is the approximate size of parts, what is the amount of things that we put in, what is the material, is it more like aluminum or steel? That is the level of information that we need currently. And then as the car is being developed, we are refining the machinery towards it.
Obviously, Ford had tremendous success with the Bronco reintroduction. Scout has had small models. They've had very large models like the Travelall from International Harvester. You don't have an idea of exactly what you're looking for to enter the market with a two-door, four-door SUV?
I think the market answer, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, I'll give a very succinct answer, which is a lot of it is still in development. Engineering is occurring, but plan for a medium to large size truck and SUV. Both will provide ladder frame construction to give that hauling and towing capability, and both will be on all electric platforms. So that's the product direction, so 2 initial products at launch. Yep.
Question about the wetlands permit. So is work still paused? Has this delayed things for you guys? What is this looking like?
So as said, in any project, this is a part of the localization. We have calculated it into our schedule. So the pausing of the work is not something where we're saying this is delaying the project. I think this is the message you're asking for, and that's a message that today is the one that we can give. Well, until we have the wetland permit.
I think part of your question was, was it delayed because of the wetlands permit? And that's not the case. So construction, so right now they've been doing the leveling and so on. All of that was part of the plan. When we got to the point where it's unfortunately not Scout, it's the county, so on, who are the applicant. When they got to the point of submitting it, we stopped work because obviously we can't do work in the wetlands. So just want to make that really clear. That doesn't mean, of course, that Jan gets to take a vacation for 3 months. So work is, of course, continuing to occur both on the planning side and working with the county and the federal authorities on getting all of that done. Once we receive that permit, then of course we can move in and continue on in accordance with that permit.
Yeah, maybe to add on that one, the major work that is done at the moment, of course, is the planning work for the inside of the factory. I mean, this is, as you see, we're working on the car, therefore we have to work on the equipment. We go out with the equipment on the market quite soon. So this is basically what keeps our teams busy the most.
Could you point out on the scale model where the wetlands in question are exactly?
I mean, in total, we are talking with, no, he has it. Thank you. I mean, the question in question, it's a total wetland permit we're talking about. So therefore, the total permitting thing is regarding the whole site. The one where we have been discussing that we maybe can have a bigger stripe left over and not touch as long as possible is here on the east side. So therefore, we're working as well on optimizing what is applied. But if we talk about the framework of the permit, it's the whole site.
Where's the 500 acres you're grassing?
Your 500 acres what?
Where's the area that you're grassing right now?
Grassing in terms of growing grass. You mean the mitigation? That is something, now I have to ask whether, Jeff Rubel, you in the back, you do know there is mitigation measures that are taken that are not on site. So therefore the question, where are these areas, I cannot answer since this is not in our scope. On site, we have been, as said, we have been looking at leaving a stripe here on the east side open, but that would be leaving as it is and not grassing there. Okay, now, one last one there.
Any estimates at this time, truck traffic, number of trucks per day to the site, as well as number of trains?
Yes. Well, we are in the whole traffic study that we're making, in the application and in the simulations, of course, we have to provide numbers, which is always a very difficult task because the question, how many of the suppliers will go on train, how many will go on trucks, is this trucks coming in short distances and long distances at the moment is quite difficult to assess. But the numbers that we're talking about at the moment is approximately up to 800 trucks a day. That is a number that is for the 3-shift running. And that's, as I said, it's approximately 1.5 minutes per truck if you would sort of look it in a row. This is a pretty normal number for a factory of that size. On the train, we have approximately 100 carts, not trains, a day that we have assumed, which is a rather high estimate probably at the moment. Again, we are not knowing how the split between train and truck will come out. The difficult number rather is, as I said, the changing of the shift. There we're talking about 1,200, 1,400, something in between that, people who leave the plant and who are entering the plant. And here it's most important, because we cannot change that number, to find the time within the daily peaks where it fits the best. And this is, if you would ask, do you know your shift model already? The answer is no. We have to work on that, and we have to understand the traffic flow of the region. Again, we are very happy about the collaboration here with the South Carolina Department of Transport, that are doing a fantastic job in simulating and evaluating and modeling the different alternatives that we're having. And as seen in the ramp-up curve, I think we're good and well ahead in working on that. Okay, thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Poonam Patel, the South Carolina liaison for Scout Motors. And so uplifting our community is one of the core values of Scout Motors. And how are we going to do that moving forward? It's going to start by listening to our community. We want to have a two-way dialogue, and next month in October, we're actually having a communications leader start to help with that process. But some additional ways that we're going to begin having a two-way dialogue with our Blythewood community is simple. One, we've created a unique email address specifically for the community to engage with us, scoutsc@scoutmotors.com. Feel free to share that we are monitoring that regularly to hear questions, comments, concerns from the community in real time. Second, we are going to have this 3D model available in the Blythewood Library from Wednesday, September 20th to October the 19th during normal operating hours of the library for the public to come and see it for themselves. Take another look. They're also welcome to schedule time with a Scout representative to take a look at it at their convenience. In addition, we're going to begin pushing out proactively messages to the community about current activities and what they can expect moving forward. And those are going to be regular updates. In addition, something else I want to share is this project is not being done in a silo. I think you've heard that throughout the entire presentation today, but we have a number of different partners on this project, whether it be state, local, government, county, and so all of them are very eager to be good community ambassadors as well. So they're going to have a meeting here at the Doco Manor from 4 to 7, and they're going to call it the Team SC Public Information Session. So that's going to be a drop-in style session where the public can come in, ask questions to the specific agencies, South Carolina Department of Transportation, DHEC, Richland County, and many other agencies are going to be involved, and they can ask those questions in real time in a drop-in fashion. No registrations required for that. For example, the questions that were asked today about the wetlands, there is going to be a press conference specifically with that group tomorrow at 3 p.m. I would encourage you to come and participate in that and ask those questions at that time. Last but not least, we have a Scout team. It's small and mighty, but it is growing rapidly, and we want to continue to have the community be part of that Scout story. So 2 ways they can do that is through joining our career list, and as those opportunities continue to expand, we'll be able to pull from that list, and so that'll be available on scoutmotors.sectechjobs.com. And if you want to learn more about the Scout brand, the Scout activities out there, there's a Scout community that's very active, that's looking at Scout vintage models, that's hosting Scout events, Scout races. You can learn all about that world on scoutmotors.community.forum, which is a Scout blog. And as always, we're happy to connect with you, but more importantly, we're happy to be part of the Scout Blythewood community, and thank you for being here today. This has been a great opportunity for us to connect with the community, and please allow us the opportunity to continue to do so. Thank you.